The following segment contains violence which some viewers might find offensive. Viewer discretion is advised. On Saturday morning, August 2nd, 2008, a woman is walking her dog along the laneway that runs off Seton Street near Shooter Street. She discovers a body lying in the laneway. The woman does not have her cell phone with her. She runs home to call the police.
When the police did arrive, immediately a crime scene was set up, and detectives from the Division 51 Division were able to attend and set up a command post. Shortly after that, our forensic identification services were contacted, and myself and my partner, Detective Michael Barsky from the Homicide Squad, attended as well. And an entire team was used to assess the scene and start the investigation in that area.
The body was identified as 54-year-old Carolyn Connolly. Her body was found a block away from where she lived in social housing. Carolyn had struggled with her killer. The media reported that her screams were so loud that they could be heard by people living 3 blocks away.
I've heard that the person whose house is behind the fence where she was killed, I heard that her screams were so loud that they woke up his wife and daughters and terrified them. So my question is, if her screams woke up your wife and terrified your wife and daughters, why didn't you pick up the phone and call 911? You know, all these people in that apartment building, right there, you know, a full view from their windows, what was going on in that alley. Why didn't somebody pick up the phone and call 911?
Calls were placed to police before 1 a.m., reporting a verbal altercation between a man and woman. Carolyn was identified from her fingerprints. Police recommended that her family not see her body.
And the way she was killed, I mean, that's rage. You don't beat somebody to a pulp and then when they're on the ground, stab them multiple times in the heart. That's overkill. That's rage. Somebody was very angry at her. You know, so why were they, you know, if I could ask them, and I will ask them when they're at trial, what could she have done that could have made them so angry to do that, to take a life like that? Like, life is so sacred, you know? And her life was very sacred. Her life had meaning. She was loved. She wasn't just a junkie. She just wasn't just a prostitute. She was a mother, a grandmother, a cousin, a sister, a friend. She was a lover. She was a good person. And I'm not just saying that because I loved her. She was a good person. Everybody who knows her will say the same thing.
On a regular basis or a recurring basis, what we're hearing is that she was friendly, she considered generous, certainly social with all of the other people in the area. And what was really interesting is from the younger women in the area, they described the relationship that they had with Miss Connolly as almost maternal, where they would go to her for advice, they would go to her with issues that they had, and quite often she was able to give them information or advice that they were seeking, and there is a sense of loss in the community.
The area where Carolyn lived has been referred to as Crack Central. The criminal activity, drugs and prostitution, in the neighborhood had led to increased police patrols by 51 Division uniformed officers and officers on foot. The night Carolyn was killed, officers from the Tavis Community Policing Program had been patrolling the area. It was Caravana weekend.
There's absolutely no correlation that we can make between the festival and this murder. But I can say because of the festival, there were quite a number of people, I'd say an increased number of people walking around the area, not far from where she was murdered. Vehicular traffic was increased as well. And the time being at around 1 a.m., just before 1 a.m., a lot of people were returning from the festival and continuing their celebrations in that general area.
Tracking down the large number of persons of interest in Carolyn's murder has been the most difficult hurdle for this investigation. The Homicide Squad recently brought in an additional team of detectives to assist with tracking down and interviewing potential witnesses.
In a situation where you have one individual being attacked in a relatively isolated area, where you can certainly pinpoint who was there and who may be potential witnesses or suspects. In this case, although the laneway where Ms. Connolly was killed was, by all accounts, deserted, the general area just around the corner was heavily populated. And we know this by interviews of people that we know were there that night. We know this by a number of videos that we've seized from the area. So what that does for us from a police perspective is it increases the pool of people that we need to talk to. And we have been able to speak to a lot of those people, but sadly a lot of those people are also transient, and a lot of our resources have been used or at least deployed in trying to track those people down and interview them in relation to what they may have seen or what they may have not seen. And that's kind of the schematic of that area that evening.
Police won't confirm whether a recent article in a Toronto newspaper that says Carolyn's killer may have kept her keychain as a trophy is true, although Amber says Carolyn had nothing on her when she was found.
The motive at this time remains unclear, and I can say that until we find this killer and arrest him, I believe that it will continue to remain unclear.
It has also been reported by the media that the community is not satisfied with the police investigation into Carolyn's murder. But Carolyn's cousin says that is not true.
The detectives at Homicide have done an amazing job, and I'm not naive, but when they told me that they were determined, they were going to find the person who did this, that it was solvable, and they believed it was, and it's not a cold case, I believe them.
We received the call, the first call at 7:30 that morning, and it was from a passerby that was going by walking her dog when they found Carolyn here. And even though it was 7:30 when we received the call, we believe that the murder actually happened just prior to 1 a.m. And this is the actual laneway. It's a laneway that runs from Seton Street to the west, and you can see it runs all the way to the end here and then also continues northbound. Now, the season has obviously changed. At the time of her death, these trees would have been full of leaves and made the view down here from high-rise buildings a little more difficult. However, people walking by this laneway may have been able to see somebody down here, may have been able to see Carolyn enter the laneway prior, or maybe even seen an offender or offenders leave after the actual assault had taken place. What we're looking for now is anyone that may have been in the area that night. Not necessarily people that may have seen something happen in this laneway, but maybe just have been in the general area that can provide a bit of a narrative as to who was around that night and what was happening that'll paint a clearer picture for us in our investigation.
Coming up.
I remember looking at the picture and just crying and saying, no, I was screaming, no, it can't be Carol. Like, she knew how to take care of herself. And she didn't have an enemy in the world. Everybody loved her.